Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're having a great day, and I am here with a special video for you, a video that's near and dear to my heart. I am going to be discussing knots, and specifically badger knots. As you can see, I have quite an array here. This one is not a badger knot, but it is a boar bristle, and that's just for means of comparison. But many people often ask, what's the difference between one knot or another? What makes one knot a high-end knot, one knot a low-end knot? And so just wanted to share a few thoughts that I have with you on knots. I've tried a lot of shaving brushes, and I have tried a lot of badger knots, and so I'll just start right in. So just as a means of comparison, this is a Burma Shave Boar Bristle brush, and if you take a look there, you can actually see it is a very coarse bristle, very thick and coarse, but at the very top here there's a lot of split ends, sort of like whenever you and you can actually see, let me back it up, you can actually see this one right here on the edge. You can see that split, how it's sort of broken, and what happens is the ends of these bristles break, and when they break, they soften. So there's a really stiff shaft of a bristle with a very soft tip, and so that's really good for lathering in harder soaps because it will really scrub into the soap, and then likewise it will really scrub into your face. I mean, that not in a bad way, but in a good way. As you can see, it's not really springy at all. It's just very, very stiff, and that's the boar bristle. By the way, boar bristle is just a fancy word for saying pig hair. So the boar bristles are pig hairs. The rest of these brushes are badger brushes, and I have them listed. I have them set up here, basically in order of niceness. This is a pure badger brush, and there are hybrids that have part badger and part boar bristles in them. I'm not going to talk about those right now. I'm just here about badgers, but the pure badger is really the lowest quality badger hair. It is pure badger hair, but as you can see, it tends to be darker. Sometimes black badger can look this way. Sometimes it still has banding or colors, and this one does too, but it's not really uniform. And you can see there's a really dark hair here. There's half light, half dark. And you can see the top here, okay? The top is the same color as basically the body of the brush. This is actually coarse yet sort of thin hair. You can see there's not much spring to this either, so it's a very stiff brush, and some people prefer these because it gives more of a scratchiness, and so it really exfoliates the skin. But that's the lowest end, and you can buy pretty much any pure badger brush for relatively cheap. The next grade up would be a best badger, and or a fine badger, or a super fine badger, and these you can see there's a bit more banding. You can see there's a light, dark, and light band. That's these rows of color around here, and what you'll see is it's a much finer hair. It's a lot softer, and the difference between these two, it's a noticeable difference. You can really feel it. This is very, very firm, very coarse. This is very, very soft, and so this is also a fine hair. You can actually see how fine the hairs are, and you would think that finer hair or thinner hair is a good thing. Not necessarily so with badger brushes. The quality of the hair is more important than the thickness of the hair. The next brush that we have here is a silver tip badger, and you can see very distinct three bands. Okay, very distinct: light, dark, light, and obviously it's silver in color up top here, silver or gray. These can also be brownish, but this is these Burma Shave, 2 Simpsons. This is a Nathan Clark silver tip set in a vintage Gillette large handle, and so the silver tip is a fine quality badger hair, and one of the softest. And you can actually see, as I rub my fingers, you can actually see the difference in color. It's almost like a sea of grain waving. It's really, really nice. The silver tips are some of the softest badger hairs that you can get, and it's sort of a medium grade hair, I would say. Now, something that's sort of hyped up a lot is the 2-band, and you can see this badger brush has 2 distinct bands, one dark, one light. This would be considered a silver tip. You can actually see the color is similar. Okay, it's a little bit whiter or creamier than the silver tip, this other silver tip. But Simpson calls this the 2-band silver tip, and what you can see is you actually get the hair is a little bit thicker, and it's a little bit thicker, and it's stiff, and it's a little bit springy. Like, you can actually rub this around and it stands here directly underneath my fingers, while the sides sort of splay down. If I were to do that with this, my fingers just go down in the brush, okay? Whereas with this, you can see it bounces back an awful lot. This is a white. This is also a Nathan Clark. This is an NV white, and it's another 2-band, but you can see it's a lot lighter than the silver tip 2-band. It's almost white up top, very, very light creamy color, and also you can see the spring in this, and you can see the differentiation in color as I flip through here. Once again, you can see the coarseness of the hair, and so the thicker the hair of the badger, the greater the water absorbency, and that's really, really important. And that's something that makes badger really desirable for brushes, is that it absorbs water, and then when you're making your lather, it lathers up nicely because it actually holds the water. And so there's a reason why people pay a lot of money for a 2-band or for a silver tip as opposed to these other brushes over here, because these actually do have better properties. They have a firmer feel. These have a firmer feel. This has a softer feel, but this end here is a lot more absorbent when it comes to water, and that makes a really big difference. I do want to talk just briefly about the Manchurian, or some people call it the high mountain white knot, and there's really no such thing as a Manchurian badger. If you were to go to China and say, I want to get a badger to make some brushes out of, and you said, I want a Manchurian badger, they wouldn't even know what that means. Manchurian badger is actually a knot or a hair type that Simpson has created, and they created it by taking a super fine badger hair like this, and then they really over process it. They bleach it, and that gives it a really white appearance, and it also gives it a totally different feel. Sometimes some people say that it's softer, some people say that it's drier, some people say that it's more scratchy. I like the Manchurians. I don't think that they're worth $500, so I'm very pleased with my 2-band silver tip right here. And there's no such thing as the Manchurian badger. It's not a real type of badger hair. It's actually a processed version of badger hair. So if you like them, that's great. I have friends that do. I do like them, but like I said, I really don't think that they're worth the price, simply because they're not really a real type of badger hair. These are all real badger hairs that come from different parts of the animal, and that's what gives them their different properties. It's not human processing. So that's the types of badger hair that you can get into. Other companies have different levels, and so some might call a Super Badger Best Badger, or they might call a Silver Tip a 2-band, or whatever. But these are basically what you're looking at. You're looking at Pure Badger as the low end. You're looking at a Best Badger as sort of a mid-grade Badger. Then the Silver Tip is a higher end, although I wouldn't call it high end, but a higher end softest. Okay, and then you have the 2-bands and the whites, which are really the highest end brushes that you can get, and they all have different properties, different levels of scrubbiness, different levels of softness. But one thing that you can do in picking your knot is you can choose whether or not you want a bulb or a fan, and so just to illustrate the difference, and there's a couple different styles here, and it does make a difference. But this right here, this Nathan Clark Silver Tip, is sort of a classic fan shape, and you can actually see that it splays out sort of as a fan. It blooms, you might say. Okay, and then another one, which is a comparable Badger knot, is my Art of Shaving brush here, which is a fine Badger. It's really basically like a cross between a Silver Tip and a Pure or a Best Badger or a Super Badger. And as you can see, it's a bulb knot. It's a rounder knot. You can actually see the difference there. And the difference comes in the way the hair is cut and the way it's placed in the knot. And knots really are basically just tied clumps of hair. They're tied and glued. And so there is a glue plug. So what they do is they gather up a whole bunch of hairs and they bind them all together, and they usually tie a string around them, and then they dunk them in glue. Obviously they don't usually do that by hand, although some companies do, and then they charge you a lot of money for it. But you can actually see the difference between the fan and the bulb. The difference in feel is incredible. These are two very similar haired brushes, but they give very different performance. This brush, you basically just almost paint the lather on your face. You can see how the bristles bend. I mean, if I tried really hard, I could actually bend it in half. Okay. This brush here, it does bend, but it's much stiffer. Okay, I can't bend it all the way over double like that, and the difference comes in whenever you bounce down on that. You can feel the springiness there, and in this one it falls under the weight of your hand. It doesn't really bounce back, and so you can get a Badger brush very cheap. You can get a knot very cheap. You can even get a Silver Tip very cheap. This Nathan Clark Silver Tip, I want to say that they retail for about $25, just the knot itself. So if you have a knot for $25 and you buy an old vintage handle, and this is a nice one, but I paid, I don't know how much I paid for it, but I've seen them go for $20, $25. So you have about $40 invested, and you wind up with a very nice brush that's great for daily shaving. You don't have to go super high end. By the way, this is a Wolf's Whiskers, I meant to say that, Wolf's Whiskers handle with the Nathan Clark NV White. You don't have to go super high dollar. I think that the NV White knots are about $58 a piece. You don't have to go super high end. You can do other options. There are many options out there, but there's a lot of difference. And so for people who say, oh well, this Pure Badger is just as good as this Silver Tip, yes and no. I mean, it's a difference of preference, but if you say that there's no difference, and if you can't feel the difference, then I don't know, maybe you don't have any nerve endings in your face, because I can literally lather up with all of these brushes and I can feel a difference in every single one of them. So that's a little bit of explanation about what Badger knots are and what the difference between them is. Give them a try. There's nothing wrong with buying a used brush. You can easily sanitize them and clean them up, and you can have fun. You can experiment. You can even trade off. Say, hey, I've got this fan knot. You want to trade me for that bulb? Maybe someone's looking for a different experience. You never know, but it's worth a shot. It's worth a trade. I will say just one thing very briefly about brands, and that's this. You know, brands like The Simpsons. There's a lot of branding that goes on with these, and you pay an awful lot for this this little plastic sticker here. Okay, some people don't like it very much, but I like Simpsons a lot. But you do pay an awful lot for the brand, and so just be aware of that. You know, maybe you can't afford a brand new one. Look for them used. They pop up every so often, and just give them a shot. Whatever you want, you can put a good knot in a bad handle, or a bad knot in a good handle, or you can just go middle of the road. I think this is sort of a middle of the road brush for me, and I like it a lot. But it didn't cost me very much, and it's not worth a whole lot. But it's still good to have it and to use it. So experiment with your knots, experiment with your badger hair, and see what you like the best. Maybe you'll like a little, $10 boar brush the best. But whatever you do, I hope that you have a great day and shave on.